Hello there, it's Kim here, the Kiwi Health Detective, root cause and lifestyle medicine practitioner. And today what I want to talk about, again, because I've talked about this before, is the healing response. What is a healing response? Why do you need to know? And how can you tell if you're experiencing a healing response? So, a healing response or a healing reaction is when the body is trying to heal itself and we experience symptoms. Now, what is really amazing about this is that most people, when they get symptoms, they think something is wrong. They think the body has made a mistake. They go into fear. They think there's something wrong with the body. And yes and no, we'll come to that in a moment. But what is really fascinating about a healing response or healing reaction is that when we get these symptoms, our body is actually self-healing. It's going through a self-healing process. And the reason it's so important to understand this is that often we can have symptoms and immediately want to run off to the doctor or go to a practitioner, go into fear, start worrying, start thinking of the worst case scenario, etc., etc. So I want to share a healing response that I had yesterday, which is a great example of the body doing a self-healing process. So a couple of days ago I had a massage, and the massage practitioner worked quite a bit on my neck and my upper shoulders, and I felt fine after the massage. So that was on, I'm trying to think of the day, it was a couple of days ago. But yesterday, in the evening, I started to really stiffen up in my neck. It was very, very stiff. I could hardly turn my head in either direction. Now, if I hadn't suspected that my body was going through a self-healing phase after this massage, I could have been really worried. I could have been thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to go and see the chiropractor or the osteopath, or what's wrong? I've got this terrible stiffness, it's really sore, etc., etc. But because I understand the healing response, I asked myself, okay, so what has happened in the last 24 to 48 hours? Because this is a big clue as to if our symptoms are a healing response. Usually, or very often, they will come on within 24 to 48 hours after something happening. Now, that something happening could be something physical, but it also could be something emotional. So I asked myself, okay, what's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours that potentially could have triggered this healing response, if it is a healing response? And I was like, okay, yeah, I had that massage, and she was actually working quite hard on my neck and shoulders, and it was a little bit painful actually when she was massaging, especially around the neck muscles. And so I decided to hold it as a possibility that I was going through a healing response, and I was very, very sore when I went to bed last night. It was even hard to lie on one side of my body because it was so sore up one side of my neck. But by the time I woke up this morning, it had almost gone. And so I knew that it was a healing response. Now, the interesting thing about healing responses is that often we don't get the confirmation until afterwards, and this is quite tricky. And also, we need to have a certain level of understanding of this topic to know when is the right time to consider it might be a healing response and we're going to hold off going and getting some treatment, or when is it something where we actually do need to seek medical treatment or intervention. And by the way, none of what I am sharing here is meant to be taken as medical advice. I don't treat, cure, or heal any illness. I'm just sharing personal information, my personal experience, which also comes from clinical practice as well. But please don't take anything I'm saying here as constituting any medical advice. But I have to say that this understanding of how the body creates symptoms, which I've studied very, very deeply for over 25 years now, has radically changed my understanding of illness and how to deal with it, and in great part has reduced my fear of symptoms. Because usually and often when we get symptoms, the mind jumps immediately to the worst case scenario, and that's a habit of the mind, which we can also turn around as well through mindful practices and changing our mental thought habits. But so many symptoms that people experience are actually a healing response. And also we could say that in many, many ways, any and all symptoms are part of a healing response, because if we have symptoms, our body is trying to do something. It is actually trying to initiate a healing process, a self-healing process. And often we can get in the way of that process through, for example, taking painkillers, which sometimes may be necessary, but often we can get in the way of the self-healing process, and also the fact that our body is trying to communicate something to us, because there are always messages and meanings within symptoms. Every symptom has a meaning. Where a symptom is, what a symptom is, what the diagnosis is, everything has meaning. And in the trainings that I've done, we map very, very precisely what are called emotional conflict themes to specific symptoms and diagnoses. And this is what is so fascinating about coming to understand that the body is far too intelligent to make mistakes. And if we have symptoms, it is our body trying to get our attention, trying to get a message through, trying to help us to understand that there's something we need to look at, there's something we need to change. We need to stop and understand why our body is creating symptoms and interpret the message and the meaning within the symptoms, which is of course is what I do as the Kiwi Health Detective, or a health detective. So I hope this gives you some cause for thought, maybe to think about symptoms differently. Symptoms are our friend. They're not our enemy. They are not bad. They are there to help us. They're trying to give us vital messages and clues as to something that needs looking at. And often it may be to do, for example, with our habits. If we're constantly exhausted, are we working too much and not taking care of ourselves enough? That's just a very, very simple example. But the body speaks the mind. The body never lies. The symptoms are super intelligent. They're intelligent communication from the body to the head. And our job is to interpret what our body is trying to tell us and what it is asking of us through our symptoms. And of course, this is a radically different approach to healthcare compared to what most of us have been brought up with, where you have a pain or a symptom and you go to a doctor mainly to get some sort of medication that is going to mask that symptom. But that's not going to resolve the problem. All it's doing is masking the symptom and hiding the symptom so that we don't feel it. But the body will always try to get its message through, so it will try to get it through in another way. It's not going to stop doing its job. Its job is to communicate with us, and our job is to interpret that communication. So I hope this is a useful little video. I'm Kim, the Kiwi Health Detective, root cause analysis and lifestyle medicine practitioner.